Hey everyone, it's Ellis, and this is the patch 12.17 notes rundown. And for a lot of people that aren't aware, 12.17 is reflective of pro play and 12.15. So a lot of the changes that we're going to see in the patch are directly representative of all of the changes that we were, or all the pro picks and balance and everything that we were seeing ended up happening in 12.15. However, because of Worlds coming up, 12.18 is the official Worlds patch, and that means that that one is going to be a patch that's done in the dark. 12.17 being reflective of 12.15, 12.16 never gets any professional play, 12.17 obviously never gets any professional play, and so 12.18 is a very interesting patch in that it might create a meta that, similar to last year at Worlds, there is a lot of different picks and approaches, at least in the early weeks of plans. We saw this literally last year. There was a lot of diversity coming into Worlds immediately, and when that ended up happening and moved on to group stage and then quarters, and then everything started going back to the same cycle champions over and over and over. So we are going to dive in. There are a lot of nerfs and a lot of buffs. This is an obscene amount of changes, and then obviously the system changes, and we even have 2 champions adjusted, which I think is fantastic. Ahri, base health decreased, charm duration decreased early. So the base health is decreased. Now, it doesn't actually say it in the patch notes here. I'm not totally sure why. But what I do believe is happening is she's missing 20 HP level 1. I think it's 20 HP level 1 if I recall from the 12.17 preview. And that just means that she's missing like an extra auto attack. It's not the end of the world because remember durability patch and whatnot, but it's whatever. Charm duration is going down 1.4 to 2 seconds to 1.2 to 2 seconds. So Ahri, I mean, eventually once she has her points back in E, she ends up getting this back. It is just 0.2 seconds at rank 1, which really is the deal breaker on it. And now this lets you get out of a bad Tinder date faster. That's pretty much it. Azir, WAP scaling decreased, cooldown increased early, E cooldown increased, W rise. Sand Soldiers, 50 to 150 based on level plus 60% AP to 50 to 150 based on level plus 55% AP. So he's losing 5% AP, and then the cooldown on the Sand Soldier going from 8 to 6 to 9 to 6. So he will end up getting the cooldown back later. The loss of 5% AP I don't think is really going to harm Azir that much, especially if you've been seeing how pro players are building him in pro play. It's not a heavy AP-centric Azir, and in fact, in a lot of cases, there's a lot of like Crown of the Shattered Queens and Zhonya's Hourglass being picked up, and so the 5% AP, it doesn't really do any. When you do the actual math on what this means that he's missing, it's not going to be the same as him losing it versus a champion that builds Rabadon's Death Cap and goes full glass cannon with all very heavy AP items. Azir tends to build more on the defensive side of things, especially in pro play, and with a lot of pro players having an affinity for Zhonya's, which I do know is adjusted in this patch. It's not a massive loss of damage. Now, obviously, this is akin to his auto attack losing a lot of damage, but realistically, even if Azir is building Ludens and he's going for like a nuker build, the loss of 5% isn't going to change his ability to nuke you at those AP values. He's likely going to kill you in the same amount of rotations, which is, for combo-centric champions, the only thing that you really have to consider. Shifting Sands is getting a massive nerf. This means that he's going to be a lot more susceptible to ganks, and he's also going to be a lot less mobile inside of mid-game teamfights. This is very, very, very big. 3 seconds getting added to it at rank 1 that he obviously won't see until way later. Camille, passive shields increased, E damage increased. Passive, adaptive defenses, 17 to 20% per HP shielded. And then, okay, the thing about this is that Camille's passive adaptive defenses, even early on, it's not super big. And the other thing is that very rarely do you chew through Camille's entire shield. It's really, really, really rare that you chew through her entire shield. Usually she gets the shield on a trade onto you, and even if you are trading back onto her, usually your damage output into it is a little bit stalled so that you don't just hit into the shield. I mean, it's something, but it's sort of whatever. E-Hookshot Wall Dive. Damage is 60 to 200 plus 75% bonus AD to 80. What? Why? What? Why? Why does she just get 20 damage rank 1? What? She's getting 20 flat damage base rank 1, and they're giving her 15% bonus AD. What on earth? What? That is so weird. That is genuinely so weird. Because all right, so Camille's hook shot is her main ability. I understand that a lot of people will say it's the Cho'Gath ult, right? But the real thing that makes Camille really good, and the reason if you guys remember, released Camille, it was so difficult for Riot to move her out of the pro play meta, was because they kept tagging things that weren't having to do with her hook shot. And her hook shot is her main defining ability. Generally, champions have main defining abilities that cause them to be in the meta, or it causes them to be really good. For Camille, it's hook shot. The reason that it's hook shot is because of her ability to gap close and reliably lock down a really big carry on the enemy team. Combine that with her damage and whatnot, but really it's the hook shot. It's the ability to bypass terrain, get around things, engage from such a far away distance, combined with her R. And obviously buffing her hook shot I think it's very scary. Very nice buff for Camille, very, very big. Ezreal, E cooldown decreased, E arcane shift is going to be 28 to 26, and then 2 seconds actually shaved off it altogether, which I do think that 2 seconds shaved off it altogether. It is noticeable. I think that Ezreal, when the trifecta AD carry thing was going on with the Sivir, Kalista, and Zeri, and people were blinding Draven, I think in those spots Ezreal was very good to come in. I think when AD carry champion pools get pinched really hard and all of those aforementioned ADCs are out, I think Ezreal is still really good. I still just think that Senna is probably the best AD carry in the game in general, though. And I know that like Zeri and Sivir obviously exist, but I think that Senna is probably a lot more malleable inside of drafts, and that people just don't like playing Senna. There's also the difference, right? When you look at a Senna that performs as unholy good as Targamas does in LEC, and then you look at some of the LCS Senna performances, or even some of the LCK Senna performances, and you see Senna having, somewhere like, pushing 50 souls at 20, and things are a little bit rough. So there's a very big gap in Senna performance, and I've heard that apparently there is a Senna extraordinaire in the LPL that I have not watched, and I guess his name is Photic or something, who's also really, really, really good at Senna. Senna is a very interesting champion in that it is so apparent even for spectators to actually see a difference in just Senna play, mostly by soul accumulation. And so there's so many things that tie into that. So if all Sennas could actually play Senna even remotely similar to, Targamas in LEC or Reckless or apparently the LPL Senna, etc., Senna would probably be up for balance changes, just because those extra souls really do change a lot of how she'd be able to play. But anyways, moving on. Graves, Q cooldown decreased, R base damage increased. Q, end of the line. So the end of the line cooldown is decreased late, but it's increased early. So it's going up 1 second at rank 1, and then it's going to start going down. But you actually won't see it start going down until rank 4, which is a really interesting way for Riot to balance this. I think this is fantastic. Now, obviously, inside of the jungle, this can slow down his clear a little bit if you end up queuing the same camp twice. But I'm trying to think of like a world where that would end up happening. So it could slow down his clear a little bit because he doesn't have access to the Q as much early. This is definitely a nerf for, the Q thing early is definitely a nerf for like mid and top lane Graves, and when he's just perma-shoving, because the main ranks that you're going to look at are like 1 through 4. Once Graves is level 9 and whatnot, he almost has his first core item, and I don't think he's really going to be as concerned. But I guess at rank 4, having the half second off is definitely something. Our collateral damage is just getting a flat 25 damage at rank 1, which is definitely fine for like his lethal threshold. I think a lot of people have forgotten lethality Graves. I think that people just stop playing. I think Graves is one of those champions that a lot of people just forget about because it gets very boring when he's everywhere, literally everywhere, for such an extended period of time. Hecarim, all abilities adjusted. Base armor, 35 to 32. HP growth, 104 to 99. So, -5 on the HP growth, and then the base armor is down by 3. So, they are making him a little bit less durable. Not the end of the world, but it is something to note. Damage on Q Rampage, 60 to 180 plus 90% bonus AD to 60 to 160. So, a lot of damage missing there, plus 95% bonus AD. So, he's getting 5% bonus AD there. Damage per stack, 2% plus 3% per 100 to 4% plus 6% per 100 bonus AD. So they're making it so that he's going to have to go full-on like bruiser AD type build. Q cooldown per stack, 1 second to 0.75 seconds. It'll have more uptime. Max number of stacks, 2 to 3, and then stack fall off. All at duration, 1 stack per second at duration end. Mana cost is going to be 28 to 40 to just 30. So obviously, like, this is a very big buff for Hecarim inside of the jungle. I would not be surprised to actually just see Hecarim literally run a rampage at Worlds with these kind of changes, because Hecarim was already, like, best in slot jungler in a lot of cases just because of how flexible he is and sort of inside of like team compositions, his backline access, his disruption, even inside of frontline, his ultimate, just having the value that it does, as well as his clear speed, because he combines the clear speed jungler as well as just, you know, having an engaged jungler and just having a champion that it can do a lot of different things. Spirit of Dread is the cooldown 14 to 16 to 14 seconds. Armored Cavalry, Hecarim gains 15 to 35 armor and magic resist while Spirit of Dread is active. So this is actually going to allow him to build Glass Cannony, but he's going to have to play inside of his W, which is just going to alter his playstyle. And then E and Devastating Charge. Min damage is going to go down by 5% bonus AD. And then the max damage, 60 to 180, 110% bonus AD to 60 to 180 plus 100% bonus AD. So the Devastating Charge is not going to have as much damage packed into it, but definitely in a sustained fight, his Rampage is going to be there. And then they've definitely balanced it so that, you know, his damage right out the gate is somewhat similar, but it's still better for AD Hecarim. And then the cooldown being 18 at all ranks is definitely fine too. Our Onslaught of Shadows, the fear duration 0.75 to 2 to 0.75 to 1.5 based on distance traveled. Okay, that's fine. Kassadin. Q cooldown decreased, mana cost decreased. So the Null Sphere being decreased, I feel like every single time I see or I watch a Kassadin or something like that, a lot of people will say that Q things don't really matter because you're just always supposed to max C. And I don't know who, what, where, when, or how people arrived at that conclusion. But obviously, Null Sphere in certain lanes can be a lot of EHP. Because you can intentionally trade with opponents whenever your Null Sphere is up and they can't trade back, right? You can wait for them to do their animation, you cast the Null Sphere, you get the magic shield, and then obviously putting points in it, everything gets a lot better. So you can do like Q to 3 points, then max C. Sometimes it's just outright max Q. And yes, in some matchups, you do just outwardly max C in some cases. But no matter what, the Q Null Sphere, I mean, it buffs everything. Just getting 1 second shaved off, even at early ranks, is definitely big in like lanes that he'll bully. And then the mana cost going down. I mean, this is a very spammable ability. He'll probably end up getting 1 to 2 Q Null Spheres for free now per cast in laning phase, which is a lot of extra mana. Maokai. So, okay, passive. Q, E, and R adjusted. So this is the adjustment that is going to make Maokai a jungler. So, passive, Sap Magic. Getting hit by large jungle monsters now reduces Sap Magic's cooldown by 1.5 seconds per attack received. Heal. 5 to 45, plus 4.5 to 11% max health, levels 1 to 15, to 4 to 34, plus 4.8 to 14% max health, levels 1 to 17. So it'll end up dealing more damage in the later stages of the game with his passive, and that's obviously very nice. Or wait, no, restores. Sorry, not deals more. It ends up restoring. Why am I'm an idiot. Ends up restoring more HP in later stages of the game. But obviously a little bit early on, it's going to give a little bit less. Or maybe actually it's not. Maybe the 0.3 HP actually makes up for the base being... It probably does, actually, yeah. It must make up for the base missing. So even early on, actually, it's going to be fine. Q Bramble Smash. Damage 70 to 230 plus 40% AP to 65 to 245 plus 40% AP. Would you believe it? Amazing. Tell me more. So it's getting... So so his Bramble Smash is going down at rank 1, same at rank 2, and then at rank 3 forward, it starts scaling harder. I like that Riot's doing this. They did this with Graves above, and they did this here. And this is a balance approach change that I don't recall seeing that often in recent times. This is a really interesting thing. Now, I've been doing patch notes, obviously, for 8 years or something, right? 7 years. And this is a... Unless I'm just, like, having early onset dementia or something, I don't recall seeing Riot take this route so... Like, this is 2 champions now in 1 patch where we're starting to see something like this. And I think this is a very interesting change to a balance approach. I think that's fine. 40%. Q now deals percentage max health damage 2 to 3%. Okay. Branching out. Q now deals 40 to 120 bonus damage to monsters. Very good. E, sapling toss. Not so healthy. Saplings no longer deal maximum percent health damage. Base damage. 20 to 120 to plus 7 to 8% plus 70%. What? Oh, plus 7% per 100 ability power. Max health to 55 to 155. So the base is up considerably. Plus 42.5% ability power plus 6% of his bonus HP. So Demonic Embrace is going to be his friend. Empowered brush damage, 40 to 240 plus 14 to 16% plus 1.4 per 100 AP. Wow, this is a lot. Maximum health to 110 plus 160. Or sorry, 110 to 310 plus 85%. AP plus 12% bonus HP. Okay, so Demonic Embrace is his friend. He's going to need Demonic Embrace for a Z. Minions Activist. Minions no longer take empowered brush damage from saplings. But monsters do. Mana cost 60 to 100 to 45 to 85. This is actually, I think this is officially trying to say that they want Maokai to be a jungler. By the way, I mean, it's not like he can't go up in top lane, and obviously these changes also work for, like, support, but I do feel like this is just guaranteeing that they want him to be a jungler. Mana cost 60 to 100 to 45 to 85, so it's going to be spammable even early on. Slow amount 35 to 45%, so it removes boots 1.5 from the opponent. A little sappy. Brush-empowered saplings now slow for 35% to 45% plus 2% per 100 AP plus 6% per 1,000 bonus HP. So he's going to end up getting Demonic Embrace, and then after Demonic Embrace, what other HP items would he actually get? So maybe Maokai does something where he goes like Demonic Embrace and then like some bruisery items, but like then he'll get 1.6%, and then I guess he'll get 1.2%. So like I guess it'll slow for like 47.x%. Oh, no, sorry. It'll slow for, like, okay, sorry. It'll slow for, like, 53%, because he'll get one tick of this, most likely, in a game. R, Nature's Grass. Missile initial speed, 50 to 100. Missile maximum speed, 650 to 750. Missile acceleration, 250 to 300. Make like a tree and leave. Maokai now gains 40 to 60 bonus movement speed that decays over 2 seconds upon hitting enemy champions. This obviously helps his follow-up engage. So, all things considered, very, very, very big for Maokai's clearing capabilities. And obviously, inside of the jungle, he provides a lot of value because his saplings provide a lot of vision. He's very good in standoffs. He's very, very obnoxious in standoffs. This is mostly biggest for jungle Maokai and then support Maokai. And then after that, it would be top lane Maokai would be the benefactor of these changes. So I think that's the order that it ends up going. And I like that Riot, I guess, has just decided they want him to be a jungler. I think that's fine, especially because he's going to be very good even for lower MMR junglers, people that are, trying to get better at the game, learn the game, etc. Misfortune, Q base damage increased late, cast time adjusted, W mana cost decreased, attack speed bonus increased, E cooldown increased, base damage decreased, AP scaling increased, slow now scales with AP, Q double up, 20 to 100 plus 100% AP, plus 35% AP to 20 to 120 plus 100% AD, plus 35% AP. So they're not buffing the AP on it or the AD, but what they are doing is that once you have, your second point in it, you get 5 extra damage, and then third point in it, you get 10, and then obviously 20 at the end. And then the cast time matches basic attack timer. These are nice changes for MF. Strut, 45 to 35, 40 to 100%, to 50 to 110%. That's very good for Strut. And then Make It Rain. Cooldown 18 to 10 seconds, 18 to 14 seconds. So this is a nerf to AP. Misfortune, not necessarily a nerf. It's a balance modifier for AP, because AP Misfortune, unless like the Misfortune goes Cyrilda's or something, AP Misfortune will typically get more ability haste than AD Misfortune, and so because of that, it's going to end up balancing out the cooldown. The full damage 8 ticks is going to be 80 to 220 plus 80% AP to 70 to 190 plus 100% AP. So yes, the Leandri's build is definitely going to be the Liandry's AP variant of Misfortune, and then the slow is going to be 50, and then it's going to increase by 4%, so it would need 300 ability power, which I guess in the later stages of the game would definitely be possible in order to exceed the old slow amount. So what I expect is that Western teams will have variations of Misfortune that include APMF at Worlds, obviously, and that Eastern teams will not, because they will think that APMF is maybe griefing or something, who knows. And then that's where I think that MF is at. I think that her Liandry's variation of building is just going to end up being superior now. Nami, E-Electrocute interaction removed. E-Tidecaller's Blessing. Removed an interaction where each application of Nami's E would count towards proccing Electrocute. E and its applications will now only count as a single spellcast for effects such as Electrocute. So the funny thing about this is that there's a lot of people that they'll talk about. So the reason that the thing that immediately comes to mind here is that there's the solo queue data, which suggests that Electrocute is really bad, and that Airy is superior to Electrocute. But what the solo queue data cannot do is it cannot coordinate and play the same way that a professional bot lane duo would play, with the intention to specifically utilize the Electrocute cooldown, literally off rotation, and just how to use it in general. That is not going to happen in a solo queue environment. I mean, a lot of people, when it comes to the stats websites, it's always a very awkward conversation, I feel like, especially because things that, I mean, you can find a lot of things on the stats websites that just really wouldn't make that much sense when it comes to like items and about a lot of other stuff, I think, if you just think critically about it in some ways. But this is weird that Nami does finally get hit. It's odd, but I mean, people will now probably just move to the Airy thing now, and that'll end up happening. But yeah. Nocturne, base attack speed increase, passive cooldown decrease, 0.668 to 0.721. Passive Umbra Blades, 14 to 13 seconds. These are definitely nice buffs for him. The thing is with Nocturne is everyone picks him, they go Stridebreaker, and then they go full tank. And it almost defeats the purpose of like why you're picking him. So originally Dusk Trail was ended up being buffed, and it got a little bit of AD. It confuses me why people don't even attempt to go like Bruiser Nocturne. They go like Stridebreaker and then tank, and by Bruiser I mean like the AD HP items, not like, you know, one AD item and then like somewhat tanky. I mean, yeah, just Bruiser AD centric Nocturne I think would just be a lot better. Rel, W dismounted movement speed increase, E cooldown now flat. W Ferromancy crash down. Move speed while dismounted is up by 30, and then the Attract and Repel will end up having 2 more seconds added to it later on, you know, at the very end stage. But the thing about Rel is that, like, in team fights, is she really getting 2 of these off in the later stages? I mean, I feel like the answer is probably no, but maybe the answer is actually yes, and the move speed while dismounted probably helps with the positioning anyway, you know, post-engagement and stuff. So I think in that regard, this change is fine for Rel. She's still going to be very unpopular, but I really do hope that she's not just immediately coming back. Renekton, buddy, hey, how are you? Q base damage decreased, AD scaling increased. Okay, so Call the Meek 65 to 205 plus 80% bonus AD to 60 to 180 plus 100% bonus AD. So if you end up building like the Prowler's Claw, you know, one-shot Renekton, he's going to be a lot better now. Furious damage 100 to 300 plus 100%, 28% or 120% bonus AD to 90 to 270 plus 140% bonus AD. This is definitely good as well. So the thing about this is that if you look at Renekton's patch history and you look at a lot of the changes that he ended up getting, centered around Dominus and like a lot of other stuff, as well as the durability update and stuff. Now, if he builds Glass Cannon, it's a little bit less egregious because he has that ultimate, right? And the ultimate now has more benefits to build Glass Cannon. So I think that if Renekton is building Glass Cannon, he might. I think he's fine. Okay. I think Renekton, you know, I mean, he had those troublesome years, you know. He had the terrible twos, but, you know, I mean, I think if he builds Glass Cannon, I think he's going to be just fine, guys. I think he's going to be just fine. Set WAD ratio increase, E slow increase. No one cares, Set. Okay, so, no, I'm kidding. But honestly, I mean, it's terrible. Set is probably one of the worst champions in the entire game right now. I do legitimately think he's a bottom 10 champion. The 5% per 100 bonus AD is also like a joke, because if you see a lot of the set builds in pro play right now, it's like Blade of the Ruin King and then they just go full tank. So what is even the AD ratio on Haymaker? You have a Blade of the Ruin King. You're not even like it's so gross. It's so gross the way that he's being itemized right now, and just the champion in general. I mean, I think when he functioned primarily only as a support was actually his best case. And I mean, speaking of the support set, Facebreaker getting 20% is definitely good. Sivir, AD growth decrease, W bounce AD ratio decrease. Base stats is going to be 3 to 2.8 W. Ricochet bounce damage AD ratio 30 to 50% total AD to 25 to 45% total AD. This isn't going to stop Sivir from getting picked. She will still get picked because while she's obviously very successful, a lot of the utility that she grants inside of her art, and then just a lot of her laning phases are very, very good. So in that regard, even though the Ricochet and the base stats are going down, Sivir's still going to be fine. Silas, base health decreased, Q cooldown increased. Great. So he's missing 20 HP level 1, Q chain lash 10 to 6 to 11 to 7. So he's just having some of his wave clear actually reduced. His extended trades are actually getting nerfed here, and even his early laning. I mean, 20 HP. Yeah, I mean, 20 HP is definitely something to be missing in a lot of the matchups that he does get bullied in and whatnot. And so I think in that regard, it's a noticeable nerf to Silas, but it won't stop pro players from picking him, even in absolutely disgustingly atrocious situations. And if you need further proof of that, just take a look at the most recent Team Liquid versus EG series. Taric, base magic resistance decreased, E cooldown increased. Okay, so the base MR is going down by 4, and then E dazzle cooldown 15 to 11 to 16 to 12. Rip Taric jungle. Not really. I mean, obviously the magic resist doesn't really matter that much inside of the jungle, but definitely for a lot of the bot lane matchups where mages and enchanters can like poke and bully him, definitely gonna hurt. And then obviously top Taric will get hurt too. Trundle, W cooldown increased at all ranks. W frozen domain 15 to 11 to 18 to 14 is a very noticeable nerf for Trundle. He's not even a champion that's really getting flex top or support anymore, so this is just outright, hitting him completely. It won't stop people from why they're picking Trundle, though. This is just like a nerf that Riot can squeeze in that no one is really going to notice or care about. Twisted Fate, QAP ratio increased, W mana cost decreased. Q wildcards 70 to 80% on the AP ratio, and then W pick a card 40 to 100 to 30 to 70 on the mana cost, so he's getting a lot more mana inside of the laning phase, which means that it's easier for him to spam red cards and whatnot. Now, the thing about the AP ratio that is a joke is that Twisted Fate typically only gets 2 AP items. Both of them are not absolutely massive AP items. He'll end up getting Zhonya's, he'll get Zhonya's like third or something, and then obviously he'll have his AP Mythic, but then after that, Twisted Fate gets Rapid Fire Cannon, he has utility boots. This really doesn't matter. The only way that I could see this mattering is if somehow, now I still don't even think this is a thing because he had his base damage removed on wild cards a while ago, would be that if this opens up his ability to red card Q and then shove a wave faster. That is the only way that this AP ratio change matters. If that does not become true with this AP ratio change, which I do not know off the top of my head, then nothing actually matters. Wukong, base attack speed decreased, base move speed decreased 0.711 to 0.680, base movement speed 345 to 340. These are just, I think, nerfs that, again, Riot can squeeze it. Dude, I can just see Harambe's tweets now, man. I can just absolutely see Harambe's tweets. It's like, I don't even know what it is. It's like, no, I'm not even gonna continue on. It's a nerf that Riot can squeeze in. Wukong has a lot of answers inside the jungle. The fact that he's like such a popular R1 and B2, B3 champion is really sad. R1, R2. So red side first pick, red side second pick, blue side second pick, blue side third pick inside of pro draft, I think is like really sad. Items, Stopwatch. Since its introduction, Stopwatch has been a powerful item not only in solo queue, but especially in pro play with extremely low ping. We're increasing its purchasing price so that if it's bought a one-time use item, it sets players back more in the gold department. Cost 650 to 750. Note, Perfect Time will still only contribute 250 gold towards a Stopwatch. Okay, so the cost is going up by 100. This hurts all non-Zhonya's Hourglass users. It's just an outright nerf for all Zhonya's Hourglass users. And now Guardian Angel. Guardian Angel combined cost is going up by 100. Total cost is going to go up by 200, and then attack damage is going to go up by 5. So Guardian Angel is one of the most misunderstood purchased items, I think, in the game. I think for you to justify Guardian Angel, you either have to be in a situation where if you are killed, the cost of the opponents killing you will be greater than your own death. And what I mean by that is, like, if the opponents have to forego everything to blow you up and then you res, and while you're resing, they're getting torn apart by your teammates because you're like a primary... Well, this is actually difficult to explain. I think I'm going to articulate this very poorly. Basically, the situation has to make it so that the idea to try to pick you and then have a fight break out while you're resing or something like that doesn't exist. It's an anti-pick measure is basically what Guardian Angel is. But an anti-pick measure in general likely means that sometimes you're just playing bad if you were in a position to just get picked off. But the real criticism that I have for the item is that if you guys watched LCS or LEC the last couple of weeks, especially the playoffs, there was a lot of Guardian Angel purchases on 80 carries that have no wake up. A lot of people might not be familiar with the term wake up and what it means. And so wake up is defined as what happens the second that you respawn. Whether it be what type of utility do you have immediately upon resing, what type of damage output do you have immediately upon resing, do you have like abilities that allow you to be evasive upon resing, etc. And so a lot of people... They're buying Guardian Angel on, like, Sivir. They're buying it on Zeri. They're buying it on, like, Callista when the enemy team has, like, Camille and Wukong and whatever other champions that are just going to bonker as soon as she comes out of res. They're just going to bonker. And if your champion literally stands up from res and just auto-attacks, or does one ability that has no displacement or nothing is going on, and the enemy team has all bruisers that have very hard-hitting like abilities, or they just have really high DPS champions that are greater than your DPS, right? If it's like a Kog'Maw who has his attack speed steroid on, and you're just going to be a Sivir that's standing there, you're going to die immediately because you have no wake-up. Now, champions with really good wake-up, someone like Fizz, right? Now, I understand that Fizz does not build Guardian Angel, but... Fizz is a champion with really good wake-up. Fizz can immediately Q out of res into E and travel a very large distance. Fizz could potentially have, like, Zhonya's immediately after resing, which is actually the reason that Fizz takes Zhonya's in order to buy time for cooldowns and whatnot, right? Other champions that could be really good with wake-up. Kai'Sa, she could go invisible immediately upon resing, right? Ezreal has Arcane Shift in some spots. So it really depends on the state of the game and how justifiable is your wake-up value. Like, what likely is to happen if you actually get brought down. And sometimes the same is actually said for mages, where mages incorrectly buy Zhonya's Hourglass. The reason that it would be incorrect, it would be that if, like, the opponents are on top of you, you're probably dead anyway. Would basically be the idea. And I know that this is a comment that I've made in the past, like co-streaming and stuff. I'm trying to think of, like, examples that I like off the top of my head, but obviously I don't want to just pause the entire patch rundown to do this, but same thought process applies. Seeker's Armguard goes up by 10 armor, and still no one's going to buy it. Seeker's Armguard, ever since the nerf to the stacking and stuff, the 80 mid laners becoming less frequent, and even like in top lane and whatnot, this item is just not valuable. It's already really problematic to have Fiendish Codex and Stopwatch in your inventory and then pick up Seekers. I mean, maybe Fizz does this in like some of Fizz's matchups in mid lane. Maybe Fizz can justify getting it a little bit more, but it's still the item, ever since they changed the stacking on it, it's just a lot worse. Zhonya's Hourglass. So the total cost is going up by 400. Ability power up 15. Ability haste is going to be up by 5. So there's two ways to look at the Zhonya's Hourglass change. This is outright a nerf for second item Zhonya's Hourglass purchasers. It's also outright a nerf for first item Zhonya's Hourglass purchasers, because the extra gold, you're going to have to stay in lane for about an extra minute and a half, right? It would be the way to look at it. So for first item and second item Zhonya's Hourglass rushers, this is really problematic. For second item, Zhonya's Hourglass Rushers, this is ultimately probably going to extend your second next item by another minute and a half, 2 minutes or something, right, in mid-game. And this is something that I talk very often about in regards to, like, Sylas, Galio, Azir if he goes like second item Zhonya's Hourglass. So in those regards, or in that regard, it will hurt those champions a lot. For third item, Zhonya's Hourglass users. So for champions that are getting it as literally just for its utility and then to make use of the stasis, because when you build Zhonya's third, you effectively have the item. So you have your mythic, you have your legendary, and then while you're building into Zhonya's, you effectively have the item. You're curving into it. There's basically no other item in the game that exists like this. There's some items that they do give some value, but basically what I mean is when you have the Fiendish Codex, you essentially have a very similar amount of ability power that Zhonya's would be giving you because of, again, mage's AP ratios. It's not like you're making use of a total 100%. Likewise, you're not missing a total 100% of ability power being lost. So when you're building into Zhonya's, you have Fiendish Codex, you already have the ability paste. You have a great deal of the AP. You have the Stopwatch, which is the entire reason. The armor isn't super critical for Zhonya's. I mean, it can play a contributing factor in some things, but generally, when you have your mythic legendary, you're building into Zhonya's, you effectively have the item. You break the Stopwatch, a couple minutes later, you buy the item, you get it back, you get the stasis back, etc. You get a legendary bonus, and you get a little bit of armor, a little bit more AP. When you're building Zhonya's second, this is the problem with building Zhonya's second, which is you have your mythic, and then you're going to build Zhonya's second, and while you're building Zhonya's second, you have this small spike of power where, yes, you have access to Zhonya's early, and then you get Zhonya's, and now your next legendary item is 3,000 plus gold. And a lot of the champions that build Zhonya's second are usually not, but not always, the best farmers, which means that their gold per minute is going to be a little bit slower. And so now, because their gold per minute is going to be a lot slower and they're building into their third item, think about their inventory at this point. They might have a Dark Seal. They're going to have Zhonya's, they're going to have their Mythic, and they're going to have Boots. And they're probably also going to have a Control Ward. That's 5 items. So now, when you have Zhonya's second item with your Mythic and you're building into your next legendary, not only are your slots being used, you're also not getting direct equivalency to the item that you're building into the way that if you were building into Zhonya's. So, for instance, when you're building into Rylai's, yes, you can get a Blasting Wand and you can get a Giant's Belt. And yes, you get a lot of HP and you get ability power. But that's not why you build Rylai's. You build Rylai's for the slow, because the slow converts to EHP if you're kiting, or it converts to a lot of extra damage for you and your teammates, right? That's the whole reason that you build Rylai's. Likewise, if you have Blasting Wand and you have Giant's Belt and you're building into Demonic Embrace, it is nowhere near comparable to have Giant's Belt and Blasting Wand as it is to finally complete Demonic Embrace. The change in power from getting those recipe items into the main item is so huge. And the same rings true for most items in the game, almost all items in the game. Zhonya's is one of the exceptions to that rule, which is why second item Zhonya's Rush is actually so punishing in a lot of cases compared to building Zhonya's third. And it's also why junglers who build Zhonya's second are just like literally signing themselves off to death. They're literally selling their organs when they build Zhonya's second, because a jungler compared to like a mid laner or a top laner is going to have usually significantly less gold per minute if they're building Zhonya's second for utility. And this was one of the things that I always used to criticize a lot of like Diana junglers for. Now it depends. Like sometimes Diana could get away with it if she would only have her purpose to just engage and then go into stasis or something. But in most cases that you were seeing it, it wasn't for that reason. And so that's where the flame for Zhonya's. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk on Zhonya's Hourglass. Anyways, Aram balance updates. That's pretty much it. So again, TLDR, it is a buff late game if you build Zhonya's 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th. It is a buff. It is a nerf if you build Zhonya's 1st or 2nd. That's just how it is. It's just a nerf. So all around, it's in most cases a nerf, because the way that Zhonya's is built primarily is for the aforementioned. It's in the aforementioned way where people buy it early on for access to power. But obviously, yes, later as a mage player, you don't really care about this change if you would be building it way later on into the game. Yeah. Okay. Aram balance adjustments. Don't care. Ultimate spellbook. Don't care. Behavioral systems. Over the last 8 months since we released our new feeding detection model, we have gained the confidence that allows us to make significant adjustments to what we detect as intentional feeding. We expect an increase in detections and punishments of over 2 times. Reminder that punishments for intentional feeding are a 14-day ban for the first transgression and a permanent ban for the second. Chat restrictions will be visible on the lobby screens for yourself and any party member, as well as on the individual profiles. Wow, honor restrictions applied to your account will be visible on your profile page with a lock icon and tooltip. Cool. Competitive. Summoner's Rift rank Q matchmaking will now focus on players' MMR and less on their visible rank, e.g. silver or gold. Huh? I mean, it's always that way. What do you mean? Oh, no. Riot did that thing. Okay, Riot did that thing because so many people were complaining, like they were like D3 and they had like a D1 in their game, right? Or like, you know, they're master tier and they had a D2 in their game, and they're like, Riot, why is this happening? I'm master tier. I should be in a game with all master. And they turn on their Zug voice, and you know. And then, you know, someone tries to raise their hand and, you know, ask them like, well, have you considered that maybe the MMR is actually just the same? You know, the matchmaking rating, I think both of you guys just have the same points. No, I'm master. This guy's D2. I mean, it's literally just not, it's not even possible. Like, but the master player doesn't realize that they've fucking won and lost a lot more on red side than they have on blue. And so their MMR, even if they manage to bink masters, is actually not that different from that Diamond 2 player. This was always the most confusing thing to me. Was like the people that would just complain about that without it something being like truly egregious. Like, okay, yes, if you have 8 challengers and a Diamond 1 player in their game, yes, that's very bad matchmaking rating. But the reason that Riot changed this, the reason that Riot increased the queue timer in order to make it so that almost all the players matched, was to accommodate to the people that were crying about their lack of understanding of MMR and their lack of understanding of like how red and blue side works. I mean, you still see it to this day. You see people complain that like they're getting plus 14 or something, and they're like, "Why is this happening? I have a positive win rate, and you know, or I have 50%." And just people that don't understand MMR. Noxious Clash Cup. Very good. So obviously, Patron, you know, for Clash and stuff, Patron did not have a 12.16 tier list update, but it will have 12.17, and then obviously it'll have 12.18 because we know that 12.18 is the World's Patch, and the World's Patch will be a large patch. Challenges. Global Defense System has been added. Have a control ward in the enemy jungler for 65% of the game. If you want to get this, okay? If you want to get this, choose a jungler that can take a control ward, level 1, invade the enemy red if you're blue side. Put the control ward north of the enemy red. It'll never be spotted. Okay? It'll never be spotted, man. It'll never be spotted. You'll get this in one game. Okay. Bug fixes, quality of life. Okay, and now we are gonna go into the skins. So let's before we recap on stuff, let's talk about things that will affect competitive. So things that'll affect competitive. Renekton is gonna be a lot better now if he goes glass cannon. Azir is definitely a nerf. Camille is absolutely insane as a buff. Ezreal is insane as a buff. Kassadin is very good as a buff. MF is absolutely insane as a buff. And then that's pretty much it. That's really all that I think happens competitively. And then obviously Hecarim is very good for competitive, and Maokai is very good for competitive. All right, now let us get into the skins. So what this is meant to personify is how all of us envision ourselves when we go to twitch.tv/Amaranth. Okay. This is the personification of the idea that I think that all of us hold dear inside of our minds when we enter the chat there. And, you know, we pray that, you know, we can be noticed. All right, so obviously, I mean, the skin's nice. It has like a Beauty and the Beast theme to it. All in all, I mean, I think it's a fine skin. I like when Riot does stuff like this. Like they had Human Thresh, and now they have like Human Viego again. I think skins like this are really, really nice. All right, so I don't know what to make of this. Honestly, this feels like Mario Strikers or something. Like literally the splash art looks so similar to Mario Strikers, but at the same time, it also sort of looks like, you know, Dr. Eggman from like Sonic, and I just don't even know where we're going. This honestly is starting to turn into like a Mega Man boss or something, like Mega Man X3 or, you know, X4, X5 boss or something. And speaking of Mega Man, actually, let's move on to Mega Man all grown up, okay? Because that is exactly what this Jace skin is, and holy shit, look at his ass. Even a straight guy could appreciate that, okay? Honestly, the reason that he's probably pointing at himself is because everyone here was looking, okay? Not just us. But realistically, this is Mega Man all grown up, and that's totally fine, you know? Mega Man X, I mean, he had his growing pains, okay? Dr. Light, right? Dr. Light finally figured out how to actually make him grow up. Now, one of the cool things on this is apparently he is number 5, but the 5 is backwards. I don't know why that is. 7. Oh, Defender of Tomorrow. No, that still doesn't make sense. So he has a really big hammer. And this is 8. This is 3. This is 10. I think that's 10. It's 10 or 18. And then this is 7. I don't know what this is meant to signify, but okay. And then, so I know what you're all thinking. I know what you are all probably thinking here. This looks like Echo and Lee Sin, and I don't get why. I don't understand why this is such a, like, I did not believe that this was Lee Sin, and if he didn't, he literally has Echo's hair. He has, like, the wardrobe that Echo would wear, like, in a lot of the fights, or, like, the splash art fights that he's in and whatnot. It just looks like that, not KDA Echo, what is it? Is it KDA Echo? I don't even actually know. It's so similar to Echo. It just doesn't. I don't know. I really don't know. Anyways, I mean, I feel like the skin line is just sort of random. I think, like, the only thing to come out of it... You know what this actually feels like? This feels like when Yu-Gi-Oh! Or, like, Magic, like, makes an entire new set, and there's only one card in it that's actually good, and it's Viego. And not only is there one card in it that's, like, super good, he's also, like... Not only is he the chase rare, he's not even secret rare. He's, like, a step above secret rare. Okay? He's, like, one of those case rare things, like 1 in 6 cases. So, he's the thing that, like, the whales go after. And I'm not talking about the actual whales, okay? Viego's not on any escorting services, and, you know, but, like, really, it's the only skin. I mean, I guess the Jace skin's probably okay, but, like, why would you not just play the Metroid Prime Jace if you were going to play a skin that looked like this, okay? We're not getting to see the splash art in game, you know? I mean, it's a little bit weird, But anyways, that's it. That is it. That was a very long rundown. That was long.